We are going to do our second day of 6-1 review, our exponent rules, and we're going to review what we talked about yesterday. We see that we have x's and y's in more than one spot. So let's start with x's. We've got x to the second and x to the first. We are dividing bases, which means we subtract those exponents. Now we play the who wins rule to figure out where it goes. We've got a 2 and we've got a 1. 2 is bigger, so 2 is going to win. That means that x is going to stay on the top of the fraction. And then 2 minus 1 is just a 1. Then we move over to the y's. We've got y to the 4th and y to the 8th. Y to the 8th is bigger, so y is going to win. And 8 minus 4 is 4. So that would be our final answer. We move over to our next problem. We have multiple things going on here. We've got negatives, we've got multiple x's, multiple y's, we've got parentheses. The first thing that we always want to do is get rid of the parentheses. So I'm going to distribute this 4 first. That becomes a negative 4, x to the third, y to the negative second. We didn't change anything there. We have a power raised to a power, so we are going to multiply. 2 times 4 gives us x to the 8th. 5 times 4 gives us y to the 20th. Now that we've gotten rid of that, we can combine our like terms. That negative with the 4 is a negative coefficient. Negative coefficients are okay. Negative exponents are not. So that negative 4 is going to stay. It's not going to move because it's not a negative exponent. Now we have x's in 2 spots. We are multiplying those bases, which means we are adding those exponents. 3 plus 8 is going to be x to the 11th. Then we do the same thing with the y's. We are multiplying the bases of y's, which means we add those exponents. Negative 2 and 20 gives us a positive 18. And that would be our answer in simplest form. Remember, that negative is okay, negative exponents are not. And our last one, we are dividing. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that division sign because we know that we don't divide with fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal. So I move everything from the bottom up to the top and everything from the top down to the bottom. Now, if you remember from yesterday's video, you could simplify each piece individually. I think that's more work. So I'm going to take my numerators and my denominators, and I'm going to combine those. So 3 times 2 is 6. That's a coefficient. Remember, coefficients follow normal rules. They don't have special exponent rules. X squared and x. I'm multiplying bases, so I add the exponents. Y to the 5th, y to the 2nd. 5 plus 2 gives us y to the 7th. And then there's just the z. On the bottom, we only have the one coefficient of an 8. X and x to the 4th, remember that it's imaginary 1, so 1 plus 4 gives us x to the 5th, y. Now we're not done because in order to be simplified all the way, we can only have x's and y's and z's in one spot. We start with the coefficients. 6 divided by 8 is a fraction that can be reduced, and it reduces down to 3/4. We've got x to the third and x to the 5th. We play our who wins. We are dividing bases, so we subtract the exponents. This exponent is bigger, which means the x is going to stay on the bottom. 5 minus 3 gives us x squared on the bottom. We move on to the y's. Y to the 7th, y to the 1st. Y to the 7th is bigger, which means y stays on top. 7 minus 1, 6. And we only have one z, so there's no move in that, nothing to combine. And there's our answer. Alright, that was a review of yesterday. Now we're going to take all of these same rules and apply it when we have variables in our exponents. Just remember, same rules apply. And you'll realize that it's really not that hard. So I've got an x here and I've got an x here. I am multiplying those bases, which means I'm going to add those exponents together. When I add 2a plus 4 and 3a, I'm combining like terms. So 2a and 3a gives me 5a. And just 4, because there was no number over here. We move on to y. We're still multiplying those bases of y's, which means we're adding the exponents. B plus 4b is 5b minus 1. And you're done. That's all there is to it. So we go to the next one. We know that parentheses. When I have parentheses, that's my first thing I'm going to get rid of. Nothing's changing with the x to the 2a and the y because those two pieces are not in the parentheses. This is a power to a power, which means I distribute by multiplying. So e times t is just et. 2m times t is 2mt. Now we are multiplying bases of x's, which means we are adding those exponents together. Well, 2a and et are not like terms, so this is 2a plus et. If they're not like terms, you can't combine them together. We've got y. Remember, that would be an imaginary 1, so 1 plus 2mt. Those are not like terms, so that's just 2mt plus 1. With our third question with variables, we're not multiplying bases. We see that we have a fraction, so we are dividing bases. When we are dividing bases, we subtract our exponents, looking at who wins. So we've got x's, we've got a 3a, and we've got a 2a. Well, 3a is bigger, and 3a minus 2a leaves us with just 1a. 4b minus 1b leaves us with 3b's. And we're done. 2 more problems left, and we're done with our notes. Okay, so the next one. This is an excellent question that you may see again. We have dividing bases, which we know we are going to subtract the exponents, but you want to be careful here. We are subtracting, so we've got 8m minus 2, that quantity. We are going to subtract the bottom, but we are subtracting that whole thing, 4m minus 7, which means that negative has to be distributed to both of them. Same is true for the y. It's the top minus the entire bottom. So we are distributing that negative. So when we look at our x's, it's 8 minus 4, leaving us with 4m. A negative 2 minus a negative 7. Minus a negative 7 makes it a positive 7. So a negative 2 and a positive 7 gives us a positive 5. That's the only tricky part here, is that you have to remember that you're subtracting that whole quantity. And then our y, 3n minus 2n leaves us with 1n. 7 minus a negative 5. Minus a negative 5 means we're adding 5. So that's n plus 12. Our next one, we've got parentheses, we've got multiplication. We know the first thing that we're going to do is get rid of those parentheses. Nothing's changing with our x to the 3a plus 2, or our y to the 4b minus 1, so we just copy that down. Now we're going to distribute that too. A power to a power means we're going to multiply. So 2a times 2 gives us 4a. And we're multiplying this whole exponent by 2. So I've got to distribute that in. So 2 times 2b is 4b. 8 times 2 is 16. Now we are multiplying bases, which means we add those exponents together. So 3a and 4a leaves us with 7a. And then plus 2, because there's no other numbers there. Then we go over to our y. 4b and 4b is 8b. A negative 1 and a positive 16 is a positive 15. Hopefully that was not too difficult. Let's see how well you understood. You have 2 problems I want you to try on your own. So go ahead and press pause, attempt these 2, and then see how you did. Alright, let's see. On our first one, the first thing I do when I look at the x's is I have a negative 2a. We want positive exponent, so I move that to the bottom, which means I'm adding those two pieces together. But 2a and 4 are not like terms, so that's just x raised to the 2a plus 4. Then we've got our y's. Y to the b over 5b. Well, the bigger one is 5b, so it stays on the bottom. And 5 minus 1 leaves us with 4b. When there's nothing left on top, remember that's a 1. You don't just get rid of it, because if you get rid of the numerator, you no longer have a fraction. And our last one, we know we get rid of our parentheses first, so we distribute our 3 in. multiplying exponents because it's a power to a power. 4 times 3 is 12a. A negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3. Negative b times 3 is a negative 3b. 6 times 3, positive 18. Then we are multiplying bases, which means we are adding those exponents together. Well, we've got a 12a and an m. Those are not like terms, so it's just 12a plus m. If they're not alike, you can't combine them together. A negative 5 and a negative 3 is a negative 8. Then we have our y's. 3b and a negative 3b plus 18. Well, 3 minus 3, we don't have any b's left, so it's just y raised to the 18th power. Okay, we are all done for today.